Hey, St. Benedict's coming down.
Ambakaila.
And we beat QRC on the ground.
Ambakaila.
Adrian, would you say the score for fun?
Ambakaila.
It was 4-1. Okay, welcome viewers. Welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on Axe Television Network. This is part 2, like I promised, on Legacy of Basil Matthews. So this segment, I'm going to cover from 1958 to 1963. Okay, viewers? And I'm going to do another segment where I cover 1964 to 1968, which is the period that Basil Matthews were principal and owner, let's say, of St. Benedict's College. So we're going to cover from 58 to 68. This segment, 58 to 63. Let me take time to introduce 4 of the legends from the past, St. Benedict's College. And to my right, first of all, Reginald Renwick. Reggie, welcome.
Thank you much, Steve. Thank you again for inviting me.
Tell my viewers a little bit, remind my viewers who Reggie is.
Well, I'm Reginald Renwick. I have a long history of St. Benedict's College from 1957 to 1969. And I currently live in the United States. I was privileged to be a student at St. Benedict's College and a teacher. And I came back as sports master at St. Benedict's College. 2 years ago, I came back and gave of myself for free to this wonderful, glorious institution. So I am here for St. Benedict's College at all times. My navel string, again, is buried in Laramie at St. Benedict's College.
Next to Reggie, another legend, played in, football in SFA, and his name is Terry Lane, and he's also a Benedict alumni. Welcome, Terry.
Nice being here. I am Terrence Lane, but my friends call me Terry. And I am one of the first-day students of St. Benedict's College under the umbrella of Basil Matthews, who has made a man out of me and men of the other students of St. Benedict's College. As I'm saying, it was nice being here, and it's a pleasure being amongst the old stagers who I have not seen for many years in Benedict's, after Benedict's actually. And I should say again, it's a pleasure being here this morning to be with you all.
And we're glad to have you, Terry. To my left, Jan Stedman, Janice, we call him sometimes, good friends. Jan, tell the viewers a little bit about you.
Well, my name is Jan Stedman. I played for St. Benedict's College in the heydays, like they call it. I also came back to Trinidad and taught St. Benedict's after playing professional. And it's a pleasure to be here, to be part of this program, because Basil had meant a lot to me. He had did many things in my life. So I am here to welcome this opportunity.
Thank you and welcome. And the last but not least, Adrian Chandler. Adrian is the one who broke down the stand in Skinner Park in that intercall against Fatima. Adrian, welcome. And tell our viewers a little bit about Adrian.
Thanks for your introduction, Steve. I am proud to be here to be part of this audience. I am a class of 65. Incidentally, John and myself were the only 2 people from San Fernando on that team, that most memorable team that would have left so many hearts broken throughout the country. It's a pleasure to be here, and nice to be with you guys once again.
Okay, welcome guys. Viewers, you're in for a treat. Pull up a chair, sit back and relax, and let's take it from there. As I said to you guys before, Basil Matthews is a man that done so much with so little for so many. And today we're going to continue in his legacy and talk about the things that he's done in Trinidad and Tobago football and also in St. Benedict's football. Okay, so my first question to you guys is, because back in 58, Terry and Reggie and you, I knew nothing about football in St. Benedict's College, but I thought they had a league, a colleges league, but they did not, right?
That's right.
Explain what what went on in those days with college football and TFA and all that?
Well, we had the SAFA, we had POSFL, NASL, SAFL. Those were the leagues in those days. And the two colleges in Port of Spain played first division, QRC and St. Mary's, and Fatima played second division. In San Fernando, you had Naparima and Presentation playing first division. But as far as Intercol is concerned, Intercol had a history both in the south and the north. In the north, it was run by the POSFL within the three colleges, and in the south was only Naparima and Presentation. Well, up came St. Benedict's College in 1958, and this is how we started our first Intercol. And my dear friend and brother and colleague here was on that first 1958 team, which of course we played NAPS and we lost. And then we played NAPS again in 1959. We drew the first game and lost the second. And then things started in 1960 when we won our first Intercol in the whole of South. We lost to St. Mary's that year, but in 1961 we moved to Port of Spain and we made them tumble down in the heart of town. And that was the team, the national team with Bobby Sukram, Henry Kwanvi, Cliffy Titus, Keith Darbesi, Horace Samuels, Andrew Yee, Andrew Hackshaw, Hamilton Clement, Lester Martin. Those were the guys, you know. Harold Morris was the captain. And incidentally, I want to make this clear, our captain, Harold Morris, fell and broke his hand.
In the game.
Bobby Sukram came back and played right back. And we beat St. Mary's with 10 men. Wasn't that, I mean, wonderful?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. The first national championship.
You remember?
You know, I remember it vaguely. I mean, not vaguely, but clearly. For a team from South, it was a victory of the poor over the strong. The popular was St. Mary's College. Saints.
Kerry,
Right.
you remember any part of that?
Well, I had not much of it because as the teams went along, you know, your opportunities were here, there, everywhere, you know, coming along. But to be actually at the spur of the moment when things happen, you know, everything clicking, you know, to bring the, how I should put it, the weak over the strong, or the strong over the weak, as some people might say it. But
You
I
were
didn't have
like
much.
You were like me, one of the benchers, right? you sit on the bench. Is that
No,
what
no,
you're trying to say?
I played on the game as we go along,
Okay.
but the memory, as my good friend here on my left,
Yeah.
I'm not, you know,
You don't have the memory.
that to remember everything in details as
Well, we
you
can't.
move along, you know.
We can't. What about you guys to my left here?
Well, I remember as an under-16 player in St. Benedict's, I was asked to bring my gear to school a Tuesday morning, which I did. And fortunately for me, I made the Benedict's team because they were having an all-star team to represent South. And since Benedict's was the leading team, I had the opportunity to play with men like Bobby Sukram and they, because they were the last to stay around. And I was the baby on the team, so I got a chance to play against Jeff Chelino, Vivian Manswell. These were big under-23 players playing for the national team. We played in Apex. We lost the game 1-0. I remember going to Chuck's restaurant at the end of it, and then, that was like in heaven. You seen those big shrimp, which is prawn, they call it, I used to call it shrimp, because mother bringing home a little thing so fast to clean, and you seen the eggs with the little side, things on it, you know, things like that, fried chicken, barbecue chicken, things like that. We couldn't eat, we couldn't afford that. So that was like heaven for me, and playing with those guys, that was big time. That was big times. Big times.
You felt the same way, Adrian?
Oh, well, of course, I was overawed, you know, enjoying the privilege of playing with people like Bobby Sukram, who to me is still the best and most devastating forward I have seen locally. I remember a game he played down in Point Fortin. This was SAFL versus East and Georgia, I think it was. when Tommy Rocker just made the Trinidad team, and East St. George came down to SAFL in Faizabad to play an inter-league game. And there were about 2-3 Tassa group came down with the East St. George team and so on. Buses of people came. And because Tommy Rocker just made national team and did well and so on. And SAFL scored 6 goals, beat East St. George 6-1. Bobby Sukram had 5 shots to goal and scored all 5. I still think, as I said, Bobby is probably the most clinical footballer or forward I would have seen, because Bobby knew exactly where to put himself at the right time, the right place, and do the right thing. And he built up a relationship with Henry Quanvey, who played on the right wing that time. And almost every time Henry got that ball across, Bobby will take the ball, either on his chest, but the goalkeeper to see it, and those are the things I remember most. Of course, we'll talk about a lot more as we go along, but I remember Bobby Sukram. And to me, I said it's most clinical I've ever seen.
Okay, how does the Dom fit in all of this? What part did the Dom have to play? What part did the Dom played in putting all this together and making this happen for each and every one of us?
Well, surprisingly enough, Dom being the person that he has and the charisma that he had, somehow or other, his interest in football was not only for St. Ben's College, but in 1961-62, he became a vice president of SAFL.
Right.
And then afterwards, he became a vice president of the new founded Colleges League for Ray Darley. Dr. Ray Darley was the president. Then again, in 1966 and 67, he became president of the Trinidad Football Association. So administratively, he was very much involved in football and the planning of football itself. And look at the things he did. In SAFL, he was very, very big. 3 years afterwards, we had a team, St. Benedict's Old Boys in SAFL. But more so in terms of what he gave to Trinidad. The first schoolboy team came from Suriname, John, you would remember, in 1963. All right, through St. Benedict's College. Then we had the Brazilians in 64 and the Surinamese in 64. Then again, the Brazilians came in 65. But not only that, the first tour of the team, and John was on the team, and Adrian and Alan Cupid and Kenny and so forth, they went to Martinique in 1964. You went to Martinique too. In 65, we went also to Suriname. In 67, we went to Puerto Rico and Jamaica. So I'm saying all this, football Dom gave a lot to the country to bring foreign teams to play here and to expose the boys to international, football. Plus the type of coaches that he had. And I always say, thank God to Mr. August Wooter, who came in 63 and 64 and part of 65. People talk about the Brunner boys, but my feeling is that, Mr. August Wooter was the man, the architect and the planner with respect to St. Ben's College.
What I've heard, and you guys can jump in at any time and think, that in the 50s, 58, 59, 60, there was no real structured colleges league. So, QRC and St. Mary's was 2 teams that played in the big leagues, and then in South, they kind of blended, and college football really started in the 60s, 63 or something, right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's the colleges league that we have today.
I'm sure Dom had some kind of part to get in or get them to form a colleges football league kind of.
Well, most definitely, because
and so
what was happening, we had our own intercall in SAFL. Port of Spain had their own intercall.
Right.
SAFA had their own intercall. So in those days, Ken Galt was the president of TFA and Eric James was the secretary. So, the idea came up, instead of having these disjointed things, why not form a national colleges league? So to have some sort of impartiality, they appointed Dr. Ray Darley as the first president of the National Colleges League, which we have today in 1964. And Dom was a vice president. Father Fafa was also a vice president. Father Tony Panton was the secretary. All these were St. Mary's guys. Mr. Springer from QRC was also a member of that organizing committee. So in terms of the Colleges League, the formal that we have today did start in 1964. But prior to that, you know, we had our own intercall. We played St. Stephen's and Irie, and then you had the intercall in San Fernando, SAFA. Then you had the intercall in Port of Spain with Fatima QRC. But today, what we see today, the foundations of which, and Dom was very, very instrumental in the foundation of the SAFL, of the Colleges League. How I got involved is I became sports master, and I was one of the delegates representing my college at the General Council.
So, what field we played on? And again, how did we travel to games, Terry?
How did we?
Travel to the games, or what field we played on?
Well, in those days, the buses were our main transport.
Regular
Yeah, the main
government buses you're talking about?
privately owned buses
Okay.
also that we traveled to wherever area in which we had any games or two. But
What was your home field in the Commons in Larrabane that we played on? The same field?
yeah,
That was your home field.
yeah.
Yeah, you remember? You guys remember that?
Well, as we're talking about that, Steve, and the home ground, I was one of those people who planted grass on the Commons,
Right.
as our new ground. And for me, that was, you know, I felt proud, and for me, I felt good being part of that. But going back, when we spoke of the foreign teams coming out, and I think the Dom always wanted us to be better than we were, and he always challenged us. So that when we heard just now about the teams coming from Suriname, I remember my father was part of the PTA at the time, and he would meet the Dom and discussion meetings and so on about the development of the school going forward. And this team he had this team coming from Suriname. And he, as he said, he could only play the passage for his guys. And my father was among the parents who took people at their homes. I remember the entire Surinamese team was accommodated at people's home.
Yeah, how's it different locations?
Yeah.
And we had at our home August Lagado and Ramon Elliott, who's the captain, you know. And the rest of the people stayed at our people's home. I think Mr. Clifford had two guys at his home as well. So, but that was the kind of goodwill that was out there for the Dom. I remember when you spoke, Steve, about traveling to and from games. We had a bus. We got a bus from Texaco, I think it was.
The latter stages, yeah.
Yeah. And of course it was painted in the school colors.
Yeah.
And
but that's in the 64 and above era. So I'm kind of wanting my viewers to know about the era before that, 58 to 63, that kind of era.
I was one of the people who supported this 1961 team in the Savannah.
Okay.
I remember that most clearly because the train was still traveling, was still there at that time. And we were coming back down on the train, and boy, did they pell bottle at that train.
Right.
You know? So that remains with me.
Yeah.
You know, as part of the 1961 era.
But now that I think of it, you know, before we got that ground in 63 where we planted grass, you know, there was empty spot of land behind the school.
Right behind the school.
Right behind the school.
Yeah.
And that is
Hogwash.
Right.
That was in
the
Right,
the hogwash.
What they call it, hogwash?
Hogwash,
You
yeah.
remember, right behind the
The
school.
school, yeah.
And that is where all the practices took
P,
place.
everything P,
Started.
physical
Everything
education was
behind
there, everything, yeah.
You see, that was an empty spot of land behind the school, and you had to pass through people's houses
Yeah,
to get
to the
to
ground,
get to that school. Mrs. Reyes, and there was an old fellow, you know, who lived behind there. And we had to pass through their property to get to the school, you know. Uncle Neville, Mrs. Reyes' husband, you know, and her daughter and her sons, Andy and Merlin, and all of them lived there. So we would pass through their yard, and no problem at all passing through the yard to get down there behind where it is. And that is where all the practice did, because we didn't have a field until 1963 when we opened our own stadium. And fellas like Terry and they had to practice there. So the only time we played games is when we went to Intercal in Skinner Park. But I think that was it, because at that time, Mr. Ralph Belgrave was the sports master, and we didn't have the official coaches as the key, you know.
So what about equipment? You guys playing gym tugs in those times, or was it regular stuff?
That's Terry.
Terry.
Because
I played in gym tugs. I mean, when I first.
In the early part, we had the tugs actually, but not like what they're having today.
Oh, of course not.
Right? You know, so it wasn't the screw pegs. It was just, you know,
they nail it on.
The nail on kind of.
All the way up
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I call it tugs, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I got you.
Up there.
That's what you played in at those times.
Yeah, those are the.
But at least you played in some boots, right?
Yeah, we had
a
the
ball
boots.
with laces, you know.
Huh?
A ball with lacing on the ball.
Yeah,
things like that, you know.
The balls had what you call lacing with the nipple that you had to
Push in.
put in. Yeah.
But I mean, because in elementary school football, we played barefooted without shoes. So that's why I'm so curious to know whether you played with.
No, well, we had the boots at the time,
Right.
but not the up-to-date type that these fellas have now with screw pegs and all these kind of, you know, but the nail-on type that they normally had in those days.
So how often you saw Basil Matthews in that? Because I can talk from my time, but I want you guys, I want to hear about 58, 59, 60.
Well, wherever Benedicts were,
Yes.
Dom was there.
Exactly.
And how he interact with you guys?
He was one of us, actually. He was one of us. Whatever happened, whatever we had to do, whatever thing, he's always there with us, guiding and protecting us as the case may be.
Between you guys, give me some special stories of things that happened.
I remember Dom in a short
pants.
Yeah, kicking on a Cupid.
Oh, that is
in my time. Yeah,
you a little of both times.
Yes,
but yeah.
And I remember I went to Arima. I went to a party at Arima, and I came to training late. I was scared. So when I reached there and I looked down, I see this man down there in a short and kicking at this guy and Cupid diving, and I couldn't believe my eyes, you know, because hey, I didn't know Dom could have played football, you know, things like that. So it was like, but then when I went, he said, Mr. Stedman, what's the problem? I said, well, I had to lie. You know, I did a lie. I said, well, I got up late and I had to do this, but I didn't tell him I had to go. And you know something? Somebody told the Dom, I want you to come to the Naprima Club and see Mr. Stedman partying. And he told me that. So I cut off partying because I didn't want him to. I was one of the starting players on the team.
Fully responsible.
And in those days now, in our times, like you said, they had boots. We all went to sports and game, and we got the Pumas. That time, the first time you seen Puma, people green soles and things like that. And like it was like, hey, you know what's going on here? So we had to play. You know
and
what I mean?
Dom paid for all that.
And Dom paid for all of that.
Right. So you didn't even have to buy a boot.
No.
And he was ahead of his time.
Yeah. One of my most memorable occasions of the Dom, it was the first time the Dom, when we moved into Pleasantville, first time from Laramie, first time the Dom came to our home. And we were playing football in the savannah. And I saw my sister coming running towards us, you know, and I thought something was wrong, something had happened at home. So I ran across to my brother and myself, and we say, Marge, what happened? She says, the Dom. I say, yeah, what happened? She said, the Dom. I say, Dom home? She said, the Dom home. You know, that's that. So Lloyd and myself took off with one speed, we going home. Lloyd was faster than I was. So he reached me for me, because the Dom home at us, you understand. And we ran up the back step and we went inside and so on, and become very quiet and said, good afternoon, good afternoon, you know. Said, all right. So he said, what happened? Where you all came from? We told him we were playing football. He said, well, why what's the rush about, you know? He said, well, they told us you're here. While we were there talking with the Dom and son, my mother came up and said, Father, would you like to have something to eat? He said, oh yes, sure. And she told him, you know, what we cooked, and saying, you know, a very humble meal at the time, some baggy saltfish and rice. And the Dom said, well, okay, well, do you have homemade passports? He said, yes. He said, well, bring some of that for me. You know, and the Dom sat down and he ate that. And I say this to say this. When something like that happens, and when the Dom do something like that, you can't go on the football field 2 days after and I give 110%. All he told us is, boy, I just passed this over the family going, and I just want to make sure you're all right. He ain't talk nothing about football. And he left and he went. But he didn't do the same thing to me. When I came in school the following Monday morning, I asked some of the other guys, the Dom knew where everybody lived. And he would drop in at the fellas' home from time to time and just look for them, just, you know. And you see that in itself, when the Dom did that, I think, you know, no way you could go on the field and put out anything less than 110%. And in school, your school too, be most disciplined and that kind of thing. That is some of the things that Dom did.
Okay, viewers, lots more to come. When we come back, we will talk about the influence Dom Basil had on his players, or his students, and also staff. We'll be right back.
Worldwide Safety Consultants Limited offers solutions to your immediate and future potential problem areas by providing you with a qualified team of safety consultants. Worldwide Safety Consultants Limited, building a reputation on quality and value since 1999. Located 23 Todd Street, San Fernando, Trinidad. Phone 868-657-1534 or 868-788-6955. worldwidesafety@yahoo.com.
Be viewing Monday, 14th March for part 3 of the legacy of Dom Basil Matthew, as host Steve David speaks with former members of the 1960s St. Benedict's football team.
The Benedict boys are playing sweet. And the QRC boys we go to beat. We have youth.
And we have confidence.
We also have us in the defense. When you hear the score,
We go get them another 4.
well, viewers, just enjoy. Okay, viewers, welcome back. You are watching Field of Dreams on Axe Television Network, and again, this is part 2 of Legacy of Dom Basil Matthews. And before the break, of course, we were talking about this great man. There's this massive structure, 6 feet 6 inches tall, big white gown that he looked so big to me at that time, and he was big in himself. So I promise you, when we come back, we would talk about the influence he had on some of these greats that paved the way for people like myself who came after. I know, Reggie, you have a list of some of the guys who have went on to represent the country or whatever, and some of the people who went on to glory as well. So let's talk about some of those people.
Well, during that era up to 63, we had 3 national players. The first, of course, was Bobby Sukran. And then we followed by Henry Quanvey from Point Fontaine. And also we had Mervyn Joseph, who went on to play for the regiment.
3 legends.
3 legends. These were the first 3. And we should give credit to them during that period of time.
Of course.
That, you know, they represented Trinidad. And his influence in them, I mean, was very, very great, because Bobby came to Benedict in 63, 61 to 63. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that Bobby Sukram was the first captain of the Trinidad College's football team that played against Suriname. He was our first captain. He was the captain of the team, and he captained that team. Mervyn Joseph and Bobby Sukram were the 2 members of that team. Henry Quanvey had already left. So, you know, in terms of that era up to 63, those are the students who represented on a national level St. Benedict's College. And you know, we have had some of them who have passed on to glory, of course, in that era. And
Well, here, before you call that, what about players who played that era, other than those three who represent?
Oh.
You have,
we had this gentleman here.
okay,
We had Terry Lane. We also had Winston George.
right?
We had Andrew Hackshaw. We had Andrew Yee. Came early in the game. Played with you both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
yeah.
guys remember?
Andrew Yee.
yeah.
He's now in Toronto. All right. We had Henry Wilson. We had Franco Daniel, who was our very first captain. Very first captain. We had Bede Wells. We had Victor, I think Victor Graham. We also
Nolan
had
Graham.
Tate, Victor Tate.
Yeah, Nolan
Victor
Graham.
Tate.
Victor
Yeah,
Tate. We had
yeah.
Victor Tate, who also played with us. We had
John Horsham.
Vernon Haynes. We had Carl Horsham.
Carl Horsham,
the
yeah.
goalkeeper who
Who's
went
now
on a track
ambassador,
scholarship
yeah.
to Philander Smith University. And we also had Lisa Martin,
Yeah.
Hamilton Clement, who is deceased, also played with us. Keith Dabasi, very good
Kabesi.
player, right? Michael Warwood, and these are some of the guys who played in that era.
Lawrence.
All right,
James.
so Lawrence James.
Yes.
We had those guys. So, you know, we had quite a number of players who played in that era before these distinguished gentlemen came on board in the 64s. Okay? And as I said, some of them have gone on to glory.
Who are those guys?
Well, we've had Andrew Hackshaw from the first team. We had Henry Wilson. And we had Hamilton Clement. These are your classmates.
Yeah.
We had George Jackson, who was a goalkeeper who went on to glory also. And we've had one other guy, I can't remember his name, but he went on to glory also. And of course, since then, you know, several people after that time, of course, that's the second section, have moved on to glory.
Okay, who was the coach or who was the sports master in that era, and how did we operate in that era?
Okay. Well, in those days, we didn't have a formal coach. August Wooter was the first coach that came in 63.
Okay. So-
Prior to that, Mr. Ralph Belgrave was a sports master, and he handled everything.
Reginald Griffith.
Reginald
And then
Griffith.
Reginald Griffith,
Right,
yeah.
I remember that.
But before Reggie Griffith came, we had a guy named Patrick Brooks, one of the English teachers who came from England in '59, and he was a Cambridge double blue in rugby and football, and he became sports master. Then Dr. Reginald Griffith became sports master, and he left, and he was the man who coached the team, the 1961 national team, and '62. And of course, he was there up to '63 when the Surinamis came. So we didn't have a coach until afterwards. Mr. August Wooter came, and then America Bruno. But the backbone in terms of coaching in modern times fell on Mr. August Wooter.
But Reggie, a great motivating figure too, as some of the guy was talking just now, was David Trabuley.
Oh, of course.
David-
most
You know,
definitely.
while he wasn't a
Most
coach,
definitely.
you know, I think it was critical, you know, that we mentioned him because of the kind of interest and deep interest he had in each person, you know, away from the field itself. You know,
He was a people's person.
yeah, he
see?
was close with everyone, all the guys, you know, and he was very influential. John will tell you that as well. He knows me, you know.
And Dave and I worked together. I mean, he was such a good guy. When I came aboard, I was a sports master for 2 years, and then he replaced me when he came back from studying in Ireland.
Yeah.
A wonderful cricketer. He played for South Coast, and he played for San Fernando also as a cricketer. But he had football skills and football knowledge. A presentation guy. And he came to Benedict to work after teaching the presentation for 3 years, and he came to Benedict to teach. Then he went away, and he was the first guy who, after graduating, came back to St. Benedict's College to teach. A wonderful person. And then, of course, he went away. He's now Dr. David Trabuley, and he heads the history department at Staten Island University in New York. Wonderful person, and credit must be given to him also in terms of what he has done for all of us. you know.
I remember Frank Stevens
Frank
Oh,
Stevens,
yes,
right?
as
Stevens,
one of my
former,
PE
yeah,
teachers.
parliamentarian.
Yeah,
Parliamentarian.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember
So
that.
we've had, you know, several people in terms of, you know, who actually assisted and came as sports masters and assisted in coaching. But the first paid professional coach was Mr. August Wooter.
Wooter.
in
But I always said
1960.
I was fortunate to play with these guys on their way out.
At the end of the
Yeah. Bobby Sukram, the Basil,
Keith,
Henry
Father.
Father
No, Henry had gone
Nolan
on.
Graham.
Yeah, Nolan Graham. Yeah. These are the guys that I played with. They had
Gregory
Hackshaw,
Ramey was
Gregory
it?
Ramey.
Who died,
You know, these are the guys who, you know, the same Lawrence. You know, these are the guys that I played with. we were able to play against men like Jeff Shell, you know, like I said, and Vivian Manswell. You know, these are the big guys in St. Mary's. They were playing, you know.
So let's creep to the edge in the 60s then. Let's leave the 50s and go into 61, 62, 63, just before the big era, because I hear you guys talking about Naps used to beat you. That didn't happen in 64 beyond. So let's creep into that era. What changes were made in that era, the 61, 62, 63? What could you see a transition? You guys.
Well, I was a student at the time. And having been beaten in 58 and 59, his team, the first year that we won was in 1960, and we had the captain was Selvin Reds Guevara. And we won in San Fernando. And Intercal was held in San Fernando against St. Mary's for the final. Well, we lost. Andrew Yee played in that game, and Arthur Smith and Clement and all those guys. But we lost that game. The next year, the Dom say, this wouldn't follow. And he became more personally involved in football. And this is why he embarked on a recruitment program. And this is when he brought in Bobby, and he brought in Henry, all right, to add some impetus on that
What
team.
year was that?
1961.
Right. So
Right.
that 61 is when he
61.
started his brain shot journey.
Swinging,
Yeah.
swinging.
Yes,
Yes.
because he said, hey, this is not going to happen again. Remember, St. Mary's was his alma mater?
Yes.
Yeah.
And for St. Mary's to come to Skinner Park and beat us,
Skinner
he
Park.
says no. So he brought in Bobby, he brought in Henry. The next year he brought Errol Davis, and the next year, the same year, he brought Mervyn Joseph. Those were our first recruits to come to St. Benedict's College to play ball.
First real set of
Right,
Yeah.
because Bobby played with BP
Paliseco,
Paliseco.
yeah.
Henry played with
Shell.
Shell, and Mervyn played with
Paliseco too.
Paliseco.
Errol Davis played with Evergreen.
Faizabad.
Faizabad, Evergreen,
Evergreen Faizabad.
So these are the guys that he brought, you know, to add some impetus to the team. Well, partners, we went into Port of Spain after beating them in South. When we beat Naparima, we had to play presentation.
Oh, of course, we beat them too.
And we beat them too. All right? Go on to Port of Spain. First time a lot of fellas playing in Queen's Park,
Savannah in
Savannah.
front of the
Right,
Savannah.
Savannah. And could you imagine, the trains went up, trains were running, and the
Yeah.
whole of South went to see the game played at St. Mary's College. Fellas with like Chipsy Mohan and Chipsy Boggs Mendez.
Yeah, the
all
Mendez brothers.
Jerry
yeah.
Gelano.
Yeah.
Jerry Gelano and his cousins, Horace Salmon,
Yeah.
had a big falling out. Horace tell him quite frankly, hey, when we on the team, we no longer cousins. That's right, you know. And
Jeff,
these are some of
yeah.
the things that we have to look at in those days. Going up, Michael Boku was the goalkeeper. But Winston George gave it to them. He scored that winning goal. And as I said, that game,
We won.
we won the
We
game.
won it 2-1, yes.
And that was
With 10
Intercol.
men.
That was national Intercol.
National Intercall.
First-
with
the
10
first time
men.
we won it,
yeah. Now we
That's
talk.
right. And Dom said, so this is what, so this moved on to Dom to even further things. And that Intercall meant a whole big thing for Dom and to me. I'll tell you a personal story afterwards. Dom said, you know, sometimes when he wants to talk to you seriously, call you by your name. Mr. Reggie, Mr. Renwick, you see how we call you Mr. Stedman? He said, you see what Bobby and those do? You're in Form 6. You could do the same thing. Give you impetus to study. So then again, they say a confusion that Henry and Bobby were playing in SAFL and they can't play Intercall in SAFA. So we started our own league in SAFL.
Oh, yeah.
The man became president, vice president of SAFL.
Right.
So FASFL had their own Intercall. And we won our own Intercall and beat people in San Fernando also. So Dom's fulfillment in terms of football, he saw it was an opportunity to move the school up on the map while catering for academics and other things, you see. And this is why people talk about football, and he patterned the school after Notre Dame. And look at Georgetown University. So you see all these things, and then the following year in '63, that's when John came. Well, you were already there, and your
yeah,
brother was there.
I was in
you know,
the junior
they
team at that
moved
time.
up and moved up, and this is when we brought in, for the very first time, single-handedly, he brought the Surinamis. Without the help of the colleges, he brought the
He did
Surinamis.
it on his own.
And you know what? The family support of giving. We couldn't have hotel to raise this, to put these guys up. It's people's homes. They did it for free because of who he was. All right? And Bobby was the captain of that team. And we beat the Surinamis team 2-1. 2 games to 1. We played 3 games. And of course, they played St. Benedict's Old Boys. And he captained the team in Apex. The St. Benedict's Old Boys played the Surinamis team. So you see how it progressed in terms of the Dom and his work.
So we won Intercol in 61?
61
First
national,
time, yeah.
first time.
And
national
then
game.
what did we do in 62?
We lost to St. to QRC
And
because
what did we do in 63?
63 we had our own league and we played progressive. And then Intercol came in 64. We lost that first Intercol game to St. Mary's.
Okay,
But
so we talk
65
about that in,
Right.
next week. But this week we talk about 63 and back.
Right.
Okay, so what you remember, Jan, on in 63 when you came, because you were a pup at that time.
Well, in 63, like I said, I came in and played with Bobby and they, you know. And that year we represent South. The whole of Benedict's represented South.
In 63?
Yeah, in 63.
Yes.
Or
yes.
You sure?
Yeah,
Okay,
that was with Bobby and these guys.
right.
You know, I was the baby on the team at the time.
And you talk about the entire South,
Yeah,
North,
yeah,
South.
yeah.
South.
But they had like they picked guys from Irie and Presentation and Naparima.
Okay.
Benedict played them. I played for the rest, which was at Irie and these guys. And then
Right.
fortunately, I was called.
Right.
I was getting ready to go scout rally because I was sent home for dues. The guys who were playing on the national on the senior team, they were exempted from dues.
Explain to my viewers what dues
No,
are.
Dues was like you pay to go to school, right? We had to pay.
You have to pay dues a little
Yeah,
some-
monthly.
a little
Some
monthly
monthly.
something.
Yeah.
But my mother had 3 of us. And I
Monthly
told
or
her, I said,
term,
look, pay
monthly?
for my bigger brother and the younger one. I will take a blind until next.
And
And
dues
when-
was
when
like
she
what,
gets money.
$20?
About 20,
$5,
20
$5,
yeah?
$5.
Yeah.
$5?
Right?
$5.
So at that time, you know.
Mother.
So I told her, I said, well, look, I will stay away. But the Tuesday I was asked to bring my clothes. I went and I played. And the Thursday morning, my name was called, Mr. Studman, James, home. For what?
Spend it.
You didn't pay dues.
Or you-
So they said, oh, everybody.
$5 a month.
And that Friday, that Saturday morning, I getting ready to go scout rally. And Carl Hasham came down and said, Jan, you have to report to school. I said, for what? He said, you're on the team. I said, on the team? I couldn't believe it, you know. And then he brought the papers. I saw my name starting too. It was like, hey, you know, and that is how, you know, everything just turned. It was a turning point for me.
Wonderful.
And then the next year, you know, is when the other guys came in,
Right,
like,
right.
you know, and that was it. That was
So in 63, we had a league.
We had, we had a league, SAFL, that we played in SAFL.
And what part Dom played in that league?
Well, Dom was the president of that,
Right.
as well as he was the vice president of SAFL at the
Right.
point in time. And little John played on that team. I mean, John played left back. And John's task was to mark Jolino. Wherever Jolino went, John had to go with him. Oh my. You remember that?
yeah.
John?
He told me that. He said, hey, what's going on? I just passed you here, passing you here again. I said, well, I don't know, you know. Yeah, I was giving a real, you know.
But Reggie, another thing that Dom introduced, you remember they also had Intercol in the league. I remember playing
In
Intercol and
SAFL,
Baby
Intercol,
Yes.
we played St.
St. Stephen's, yes.
We gave them
St.
11 one year.
Yeah.
They
you
called
know.
the goalkeeper Ocean's 11.
You know, but I think that was the only season though that
That was the one season. And then
there was
afterwards, the
Intercol
Colleges
down.
League came into play.
Irie was also part of
Irie
that.
was on the
St. Stephen's had played Irie before. They beat,
Irie, St. Stephen's, and
they beat
Benedict.
St. Stephen's beat
Right.
Irie and then they met us.
Right.
And I remember this guy who was
Skinner, not Skinner,
not
Spooner.
Spooner. Charles
Spooner
Spooner was the
was
captain
right,
of.
was the captain
of-
of
of-
it.
you
Okay.
know. So that was because at that time I just come in into the school and I was on the junior team. You know, I enjoyed a lot of success down there. You know, on the junior team, and it was after that I came onto the team, and when the other guys they from Point 14 came on, and John and myself were elevated permanently to the first team after that. You know, so I was in the transition then when we just Intercol along in SFL. You know.
So what I'm hearing is we get beat up in 58, 59, 60. Then the dumb brain started to turn and saying, hey, I need to do something. I need to start recruiting.
Exactly.
So he recruited some better players, which he continued to do. And we're going to get into that next week with the Kenny Joseph and the Alan Cupid and Jan Stedman and
Leroy DeLeon and those guys.
Leroy DeLeon and Warren Archibald and that, right? So I mean, it was a learning process for them, and we could see how he developed his tactics or his strategy to make things better. Yeah.
Well, you know, strangely enough, the other colleges were doing it in Port of Spain, you know. When they had brought in their players, nobody said anything.
Right.
And when we brought in Bobby Supram for the first time, and then Henry Quanby, and then we had Mervyn Joseph and Errol Davis, people started talking, hey, we're buying players. And this was not so. Dom was giving these players an
opportunity
for education.
Yeah.
And giving them, right here in the South, you see, and coming to St. Benedict's, the exposure, all right, on a national basis, you know, what it meant for all of us, for students and for the whole of South, you see, at the national level. And this is why it is very historic in terms of that game in 1961, when we went to Port of Spain. As I always say, we make them tumble down in the heart of town. With 10 men, we beat St. Mary's, mighty St. Mary's. It was the beginning of an era.
And I always say that St. Benedict's was a school for the less fortunate.
Definitely.
Those who couldn't pass for Pres and Naparima, they were able to come to Benedict's and still achieve the same grades and everything that these other guys did.
Right.
So it was like, it was a point for us. You know, it was something that levelly playing field. They said we had a football school. Like a guy asked me, say what? I said, yes. My first period, the teacher walked into the class and said, okay, we're going to teach trapping. As the bell rang, the next teacher walked in, heading. I said, so what do you expect? Because they all thought that was what's going on in the school. You know, so I put them on that.
Yeah.
But you know, in all that we say, you know, this man taught me how to live and taught all of us
Yes.
how
All
to
of
live.
us, yes.
All right?
Yeah.
He didn't give me peas to eat. He showed me how to plant peas.
Yes.
He didn't give me a piece of fish to eat. He showed me how to fish.
Yeah.
And by planting peas and fishing, I could live for a lifetime. In every phase that you do. All right? Look in the era in terms of who he has produced and how these guys went on and make a man out of themselves, as Terry said.
One of the things I've think from boys' school. Well, at the time he was the priest in the San Fernando thing, you know, and boys' school was just next to them,
The church.
to the church, yeah. And the beginning of Benedict's, the majority of the boys from boys' school, at least I was in boys' school at the time, we were invited to come down to Benedict's. In those days, they didn't have any exams and all this kind of thing, right? Those are the days where the college blazer, green, gold trimmings, white pants, every first Tuesday of the month and so on, that we had to come out with.
All white with a green blazer.
All white pants, green blazer, gold trimmings with your
They call it
nail
college
omnino
stripes.
Cristo.
Yeah.
Nilo Omnino Cristo.
Nail om.
Nothing
Today's
before Christ.
nail omnino Cristo.
Nothing before
Nothing
Christ.
before
Christ
Christ.
above all.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
But today, a Benedictine could hardly tell you what the
What's the
meaning of
meaning
nail
of
omnino
Oh, yeah.
Cristo
Oh,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Dom made sure we knew what that was.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah, he
First
knew.
time when they
yeah.
came to school.
You see.
But
I think-
we were supposed to come every first Tuesday in the month.
Oh, yes. You know, you had to wear your
You had to
official
wear
uniform.
your
Why, and I won't be proud to wear that.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, I still have my blazer, as a matter of fact. And, you know, and listen to the other guys. I think what we are telling you, Steve, is that we are playing a specific role for them. The Dom had a vision, and we played part of it.
We were the
And didn't we
prods.
play that well?
Obviously.
All of us are proud today to sit here and discuss and talk about our own lives. My life has been a most successful one. I have a beautiful family, and I think the Dom would have played a critical role in that. You know, so that I think we would have done for the Dom, you know, we would have done him proud. And I'm sure wherever he is smiling and happy with us right
I was
now.
telling him that this morning. Wherever he is,
Yeah.
he gonna be smiling.
Yes.
He raised a bunch of good kids, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
If you check the world map
Yeah.
and you swing right around the world, you could get a Benedict man any part of it. Wherever you look around, there's a Benedict man somewhere around.
And a very successful one too.
Well,
Yeah.
I say he supplement the income that your parents couldn't provide for you. He
Definitely.
supplemented.
Yes.
He give us boots, he give us other things, he give us food as well if he could dinner food, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had about 5 minutes left. So I'll give you guys a little bit more time so we can go down the line and say what Dom meant to you, or what you think he meant to the community, or what you think he meant to Trinidad football, anything. I'll give you like a minute on each to say what you feel about Dom, and we can feel his presence in this room. I know you guys say he's here, he's listening to us, so talk to Dom.
I will want to talk first. I think I will precis my position in making my comment, in saying that I think for me, the Dom was the greatest mentor. I know Dom has been my mentor. And I think if I am a successful person today, it would have been, the Dom would have played a critical role in that. And of course, I am proud to be St. Benedictine. You know, incidentally, you know, the school will celebrate 60 years this year.
Exactly.
And I feel proud to sit here and say that, yes, I am from St. Benedict's College. I am, yeah.
You feel he has paved the road for you to walk in the right?
Oh yeah, most certainly.
Right.
If I am a success now, the Dom would have played a critical role in that.
Right. What would you, Jan?
Well, I'll say Dom was a father away from home. And what Dom instilled in me, discipline, I returned to St. Benedict's College with that sort of discipline. And today, all the guys that I taught in St. Benedict's College, excuse me, they are very successful today. Most of them live outside. And if it wasn't for the Dom, I wouldn't have had that background to impart it with the youth that I do. Sorry.
So you came, and I know you got a cough, so I'll help you talk. You came from a footballer student, and then you went on to be a teacher. You went out, you get an opportunity to go out and play professional soccer.
Yeah.
You get an opportunity to go to school like we all did. And then you get an opportunity to come back and give back to the school as a teacher and as a coach and so much. So and of course you blame it, you give it thanks to the Dom for that opportunity.
Yes, for that opportunity.
And so on. Okay, Reg, I will pass it on to you.
Well, for me, Dom was everything. A friend, a father. He was my teacher in Form 6. He was my boss, my son's godfather, and he lived with me. And so many things we have shared together. If it wasn't for Dom, even going to the United States, you know, I don't think I would have been where I am, you know, to be a university lecturer and what have you. The thing is this, and the Dom was way before his time. The man was very humble. And I think if one of the things I've learned from Dom is to try to be humble and to help your fellow man, regardless. And another thing, his spirituality, having lived with me. This man was a man full of prayer, prayerful person, in spite of everything. And I learned that from him, how to pray and to try to be a good Christian. Dom meant everything to me, and I love him. I cared for him, and I know he had a special love for me. I didn't play football, all you guys here. But he says, Reggie, I want you to be the sports master. I said, why? He says, you grew up with the fellas. Everybody know you in school. You would be an inspiration for them. You're past seniors, you're past 8C. And this is how I got into football. He said, Wuta is going to be your coach. I knew nothing of football. You see, and being a single boy, I went to Benedict's. We had 4 Stedman friends, brothers who went to Benedict's. We had 2 Chandlers. We had 2 Lanes. All right? So what I'm saying is Dom meant everything to me, and I give God thanks and praise for his life and for his inspiration and for his encouragement to be what I am today. And I say thank you, God.
God be grateful. God be grateful. And that's what he taught us all, to be grateful.
Well,
Terrence.
he was instrumental in making a man out of me. Number one, plus from boys' school, I went to Benedict's, and through the DUM, in 1959, I went into Pointe-à-Pierre to work as an instrument mechanic. And the teaching that was given to me in Benedict's has helped me through the era, because I've made 41 years as an instrument mechanic.
Right.
Before I retired in 2000, right? So he has been instrumental in making me who I am today.
Wonderful.
Right? And I give God thanks for first being a Benedictine, right? And the pleasure goes all around for me on that.
So, Dom, you heard him. We all thank you so much for your blessing, for being who you are. We're really grateful. Thank you so much. And to my viewers, we come to the end of another edition. This is part 2. We're going to have part 3 from 64 to 68. So stay tuned. Next week, we're going to get into part 2. So thank you for allowing us into your homes and to bring the show. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks, Axe Television Network, for giving us the opportunity. Thank you so much, Axe. To the panel, guys, I want to thank you guys so much for being here.
Yeah.
Again,
Thank you,
we are alumni, and we're brothers, and we always be.
It's a
And
pleasure
we tied
being
them
here.
with them.
Thanks for the
Thank you so
invitation.
much.
Thanks
It's
for the
a pleasure
invitation.
being here.
Thanks.
Don't forget, we have a Facebook page, and don't forget to drop us a line, and fieldofdreamstt@gmail.com. The show has ended. Go in peace. I'll see you next week at 8 o'clock, Axe Television Network. We bring part 3 of the legend, Basil Matthews. Good night.